All right, let's jump right in. We're going to break down a really fascinating discussion from a religious study group that was trying to tackle a huge question. Why are so many of us, well, unhappy? This is all about their search for meaning in our modern world. This right here was the starting point for their whole conversation. This feeling that, whether it's our jobs, our friendships, even our food, the flavor is just gone. It's like everything's become automatic, just going through the motions day after day, without any real substance to it. And this is the paradox that's so hard to wrap your head around. One of the people in the group told a story about this kitchen contractor he met. The guy's business was exploding, doing better than ever. But when he was asked if he was happy, he just kind of laughed and said, "Not at all. Life has no flavor." So you see, it's not about a lack of success. It's this deeper, more universal feeling of emptiness. So, what's the diagnosis here? What's causing this widespread disconnect? Well, the group really honed in on a specific state of mind they believe is at the very root of the problem. They call it bilinç kapalı, which basically translates to closed consciousness. And the idea is that we're pretty much living on autopilot. We do things, we chase things, we want things, but we almost never stop and ask, why? We're running on a program that society, the media, and advertisers wrote for us, not one that comes from our own deep personal truth. And to explain this, one of the speakers used this really brilliant analogy. Just think about addiction for a second. We get hooked on things like soda, right? Things that are totally manufactured, artificial, and, let's be honest, not very good for us. But here's the thing. You never hear about somebody being addicted to something that's purely natural and good for you, like a glass of fresh squeezed orange juice. You just can't get truly addicted to something that is fundamentally real and beneficial. And that's what brings the whole analogy together. The group's point is that this closed consciousness makes us vulnerable to addictions to all the fake, synthetic, empty calorie parts of life. We end up chasing these artificial goals and desires, which just leaves us feeling totally unsatisfied because we're not connecting with anything authentic or true. So, okay, if a closed consciousness is the problem, then opening it up through some real deep understanding has to be the way forward. Let's look at the solution they started to build out. According to the group, when you genuinely understand your purpose, your why, all these things we struggle with, like depression, anxiety, and fear, they just start to dissolve. They're really just symptoms of a life that's being lived without a clear purpose. Getting that bigger picture gives you this profound sense of peace that just makes all that other stuff seem kind of pointless. And to help frame this understanding, they used another really specific analogy. Picture the world as a huge company, and God is the patron, the big boss. Their point is, just like you accept your boss's rules to get your paycheck, the way to find peace is to accept the fundamental rules of existence. You don't argue with the company's core mission. You learn how to work within that system to find success. But, and this is a huge but, the group makes a really critical distinction here. Just finding out about this knowledge, what they call ilm, that's not the end of the road. There's another much harder part of the journey. It's the difference between what they call ilm and taqwa. Ilm is the intellectual stuff. It's knowing the rules of the company. Your mind gets it. But taqwa is something else entirely. It's submission. It's actually living by those rules. See, you can know everything in the world, but if your ego gets in the way and stops you from acting on that knowledge with humility, then it's all useless. Your mind might understand, but it's your soul that has to truly accept it and act on it. So the whole issue really boils down to this. You can be the most knowledgeable person on earth and still mess up if you don't actually embody what you know. The real challenge isn't just gathering information, it's finding the humility to live in line with that truth, to really, truly submit to it. And that brings us to the final, and probably the most important piece of this whole puzzle. How in the world do you take this idea of submission and actually apply it to your everyday life? One of the participants shared this really incredible story from a trip he took to Cuba. He went there expecting to find this society that was just thriving on its ideals. But instead, what he found was this deep, profound unhappiness. And why? Because the people weren't living what they claimed to believe. He realized that this gap, this disconnect between what you believe and what you do, that's the universal source of our misery. So, the ultimate takeaway from their entire discussion is that finding meaning isn't something you do once. It's a daily practice. It's about
actively refreshing your core beliefs, about realigning yourself with your purpose every single day. You know, like how you refresh a web page to get the latest version? You have to do that with your face, with your purpose, to keep it alive and vibrant.
And that leaves all of us with a final, pretty challenging question to think about. We all have a story, right? A story we tell ourselves about who we are and what we believe in. But is the life you're actually living a true reflection of that story? Or is there a disconnect, a gap, where that modern malaise starts to creep in? And that's something only you can answer.